Last week, we took up an important topic, which is Manonasha and Manolaya. How was the topic built up? We entered Ashtanga Yoga. Then in Ashtanga Yoga, we learned about prana, how thoughts can actually, how thoughts and prana, how vrittis and prana are interrelated. And that when we can use our breath to control our mind or our thoughts, which are like birds fluttering all over the place, and that prana is like a net that can hold it. Why do they have that relationship? Shakayor dvai shakti mulaka. Because they are both branches of the same root, and that root is Shakti or Maya. And therefore, the breath is related to the mind is related to the breath. By controlling one, we can control the other. Then he says, now, if you're going to use the breath to control the mind, this is what can happen. Mano laya. This mano laya can happen, which is called absorption of the mind. And this absorption of the mind is okay, but what we're really looking for is mano nasha. So in verse number 13, laya vinashane, there are two things: absorption of the mind and destruction of the mind, two ways of controlling that mind. Ubhaya rodhane. When the mind gets absorbed, laya gatam punaha bhavati, the mind that gets absorbed, again it comes back. But no mritam means na umritam, not the dead mind or not the destroyed mind. So again, let's just review a little bit what comes in Manolaya and what comes in Manonasha. So I had given you this brief example like last week. Imagine your computer goes to sleep. It goes to sleep and it wakes up. That is called Laya, because it went to sleep and it came back the exact same way. But let's say your computer went through a restart and all kinds of updates are there, all kinds of things are fixed, issues are fixed and installed. When it comes back, it doesn't come back the same way. So that is called nasha. Means it comes back, but not in the same way, not like it was before. That is what's called manonasha. So in manolaya, we experience through pranayama the silencing of the mind. The mind becomes silent. It even becomes thoughtless. But remember what I said last week about that thoughtless. It even becomes, so to say, thoughtless. And it becomes so serene, so quiet. So what happens is those thoughts are rooted out. So you feel a nice serenity, you feel a peace, you feel a sense of ease. But when that mind comes back, the same likes, dislikes, disturbance, desire, all kinds of things come back with it. And it's so to say that it's a mind that went in and a mind again that comes back out. And this is what we do all the time. And I had explained that in sleep it's different because we unconsciously do it. It's out of tamas, it's unconsciously done. But when we take up a practice like pranayama, it's consciously done. We become silent and then it comes out again. This manonasha is very different because not only the thoughts are destroyed, but the very root, that very ignorance is destroyed. So that very ignorance is removed in manonasha. It's called destruction of the mind because it's the destruction of ignorance. We know, and I said ignorance comes in two forms. Anatmani, atma buddhi. In the not self, I see the self. Or I take myself to be the not self, and I take the not self to be the self. Or I take the world to be real. Jagati satyatva buddhi. So this form of ignorance in manonasha is destroyed. That ignorance is destroyed. So what happens is that when that mind comes back, It's not like before. What do you mean it's not like before? So these are some examples of Shastra. Number one, it is like a burnt rope. Not to say that the mind doesn't come back, it comes back, but not like before. Meaning, if you see a burnt rope, it is the shape could still be there of a burnt rope. But the minute you pick it up, you cannot tie anything with it. You cannot literally tie anything because it's burnt. You can't do anything with it. Or you can even an incense stick, one that is very solid and then one that's almost ash. When you touch it, it collapses, isn't it? That mind is like a burnt rope, which means it doesn't bind anymore. It's a non binding kind of mind. So it still perceives, it still thinks, it still imagines, it still does everything, except that it doesn't bind. It doesn't bind us. And we will see, I'll give you an example so you can understand this better, what this non binding mind means. The second example is it's like drawing a line in water. Right now, our mind feels so limited, right? Because we take it to be a mind. But when you draw a line in water, how long does that line last? It doesn't last. That mind that comes back is, so to say, unlimited, because it's no longer an individual mind. It's no longer a mind. And that mind that comes back is not a mind because it is pure consciousness. For one whose ignorance has been removed, the world is nothing but pure consciousness. The world is Brahman. And this body is part of the world, so it is Brahman. The mind is part of the world, so it is Brahman. So when we say the mind doesn't come back like it did before, it's because for the jnani, for the one who has the knowledge, the mind itself is Brahman. The mind is Brahman. Doesn't have limitations, and the mind is non-binding. So this non-binding, now think of this example. Think of, let's say there were so many kinds of pots, so many different kinds of pots. There was a blue one, a red one, a gold one, a silver one, and we became all fascinated with these pots. We became really, really fascinated with these pots. And so I said to all of you, you are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I said to all 8 of you, I said, listen, each of you, I will give you a pot. And so you were so excited. God knows why you were excited to get the pot. We don't know. But you were so excited to get the pot. But I said, you can get it tomorrow. And so you couldn't sleep the whole night because you're thinking, I want the red color, or I want the gold color, I want the blue color. And you dreamt about the pot. You dreamt about the one that you really liked. And you were hoping that you would get the one that you really liked. Except the next day, I gave you exactly what you didn't like. And so you became so upset, so sad, and you were jealous of the one who got the one that you did like. And you were angry that you didn't get what you liked. So all of these things happen, right? You're jealous, somebody got what you liked. You're angry, you didn't get what you wanted. So many things happened in your mind. But what if you saw the pot just to be clay? What if you said, oh, it's just clay? No big deal. Whatever pot I get is fine. And if I don't get any pot, that's also fine. What if you just saw it as clay? Then all of these feelings of, I hope I get it, or I really like this color, or why did he get that color? Why didn't I get it? Or one pot is not enough. I think I need 4 more pots. If you and I just saw it as clay, nothing would happen. Seeing the pot as clay is what is known as a non-binding mind. You see the world as Brahman itself. You see the world as pure consciousness itself. So there is no such hoping, wanting, there's no such desiring, there's no such agitation, because it's Brahman. Big deal. It is just my expression, right? This is called a non-binding mind. This is the jnani's mind. So when that mind comes back, you can just imagine how calm that mind is, because everything is Brahman. Just like all the pots are clay. So big deal. That is called manonasha. That's what happened. So because this mind is non-binding, it cannot tie us. It cannot give us all these crazy emotions that we would all otherwise feel. And this mind is consciousness alone. And this is called the destruction of mind. The destruction of mind means the destruction of ignorance. I know that the mind is false. It is a false thing. And in its essence, I know that the mind is pure consciousness. So that manolaya still keeps me in bondage. But the manonasha liberates me. This is the difference. Okay? Then one might ask, well, I want to get to manonasha. I don't want to just stay in the realm of manolaya. I know that I do many practices to keep my mind quiet and still, but quietude of the mind is not the goal of spirituality. It's not the goal of Vedanta. The goal of Vedanta is to transcend that mind, not just to quieten it. And many people stay in this realm of quietening the mind. Let me just get my mind quiet, and let me, even if it's quiet for 10 minutes, oh, I feel so good. Feel so good, but after that we feel terrible. So the goal of Vedanta is not quietude of the mind, it's transcending that mind. And that's where we have to go to. So it's not to go from I'm feeling so sad to I want to feel happy and calm and at peace. That's not enough. We have to come to the level where I'm not the mind. Because guess what? Happiness and sadness will keep coming. So many emotions will keep coming to the mind. So if my goal is I want to get from I'm so sad to I'm happy, that's a great step. But an even greater step is to go, I'm beyond the mind. That's even greater. So how do we make that transcendence? How do we transcend the mind? In verse 14, it becomes very clear. It says, prana bandhanat. By the restraint of prana bandhanat, leena manasam, the mind gets absorbed. So this is very clear. But if we want the nasha, if we want that adaha, this mind, if we want nashameti, if we want it to go to destruction, then eka chintanat. It can do so by thinking or contemplating on the one reality. So when my mind is quiet, and we can start with prana, and when the mind is quietened, then you bring that knowledge to the mind. And that's why in Gayatri Mantra, we would do a whole process where we would go from relaxing the body to, focusing on the breath, to doing the japa. But after that whole process, I had asked you to contemplate on the self. Because that's the idea. When the mind is brought to quietude, ekachintanat, bring that knowledge of the self there. That knowledge which we are learning in class, which you are listening to, which you are reading in your own time, reflecting on in your own time, that knowledge, bring it to the mind. And that knowledge, when it becomes very deep rooted, it can in fact cause nasha, the destruction of the mind. When it becomes very, very deep rooted. What does being deep rooted mean? Being deep rooted means it becomes like my nature. It becomes like my nature. Like the way I think that I'm a woman or I'm a man, this I am the pure self, that becomes my nature. That becomes my primary identity. I see myself as Brahman, but expressing as this jiva. That means it's deep rooted. So the idea is when we bring it to our minds in that state of quietude, it becomes deep rooted. And the more we do so, the more it becomes deep rooted. When it becomes very deep, that can cause manonasha. And that is why it says ekachintana. Think on that one reality, that one without a second, that one that knows no other. Ekam eva advitiya. Think about that one alone. And so all of these things that we do in our japa practice, whether it's Mahamrityunjaya japa or Gayatri japa or Ishta Devata japa, the main practice is to get the mind to focus, to bring it to that point where it's steady, so then we can do ekachintana. It's all that we do is preparation, so we can do more and more ekachintana. Because if that preparation is not there, it becomes very difficult to do. So take note of this in your own daily practice. If you can, evolve slowly to ekachintana, thinking about that one reality. Okay? So how to go from laya to nasha? What is the formula to go from laya to nasha? Ekachintana. Now, what is the result of that ekachintana? What is the result of that ekachintana and that manonasha? What happens then? What happens to that mind that has been destroyed? What does that person look like? And so he explains this is how the person looks like in verse 15. Nashtamanasot krishtayoginaha krityamasti kim swasthitim vyataha. Nashtamanasot krishtayoginaha krityamasti kim swasthitim yataha. So what it says here, nastamanasaha. Nastamanasaha means that person whose mind has been destroyed. Manas, the mind, nashta, that mind has been destroyed. Who is this person? Utkrishta yoginaha. This person is the exalted yogi. So for the person whose mind has been destroyed, for that exalted yogi, Utkrishta yoginaha, kim krityamasti means is there anything to be done? Kim, is there krityam to be done? Asti, is there anything to be done for this exalted yogi, for the mind whose mind has been destroyed? And what does it say? Na, no. Yataha, since swastitim, this person abides in the self. Ritstale mana swastatha kriya bhakti yoga bodhashta nishchitam. What we saw in verse number 10, this person, this swastitim is the exact same thing. So there is no need for he or she to feel like, what should I do? What more should I do? Because they are ever now abiding in themselves. Why? Because the mind has been destroyed. So let us look at this now for one moment. There are two types of yogi. Yogi is somebody who has done a lot of austerity. That the one who has practiced yoga is called yogi. Who practices yoga is called yogi. There is what is called Utkrishta yogi and Nikrishta yogi. Utkrishta yogi is the one who is exalted. Nikrishta yogi is the one who is a yogi, but maybe their mind hasn't gone to nasha, it has just gone to laya. Sometimes when we practice bhakti yoga, ashtanga yoga, the mind goes to laya. And no doubt it is an austerity. And no doubt the mind becomes silent, it becomes quiet. But that is nikrishta, that is not exalted, because that mind will come back. But the yogi whose mind has gone to nasha is utkrishta, because they are fulfilled now. They are fulfilled. They feel like, what else is there for me to do? What do you mean, what else is there for me to do? Do they not act in the world? Do they not do anything in the world? They do, but their actions do not arise from what we call discontent. They arise out of contentment. How do you and I act? First, we have a sense of, first it starts with ignorance. We don't know we are complete, and there's a sense of discontentment. I want to be complete. I don't feel like I'm complete, so there's an itch. I want to be complete. I want to pursue this degree. I want to get this promotion. I want to have this comfort. I want to have this family. I want to have this kind of lifestyle. I want to have this social network. There's an itch here that I am just not complete. And because there's an itch, there's a discontent, a sense of discontent, we then act. And we act out of that discontentment to pursue this world of names and forms. And so we become so tired after some time because we keep pursuing this world of names and forms, but we come back so tired because we're just not getting anything out of it. We're getting something, but that which we are looking for, we're not getting that thing out of it. And so this is the kind of way that we act in the world. But this Utkrishta yogi, instead of working, serving, doing for joy, does from joy. So there is no sense of discontentment. There is no sense of that I am incomplete, because the mind has been destroyed. Everything is Brahman. I also am Brahman. I am full. So if there's such a desire arises, it is not out of discontent. If they have to eat, they have to go somewhere, they have to do something. It's not because they feel the need to. It's not because there's an itch. It's because it's their natural expression. So many things will come out of them, like Puja Gurudev was a natural expression. And so therefore, they're not tired by the kind of work. They're ever inspired and ever free. If it happens, okay. If it doesn't happen, okay. Because guess what? I don't need it. I don't need it. I'm just doing it because it's just coming out. And they don't know what to do. It's just coming out because it's out of a sense of their joy, out of a sense of their completion. So this question, kim krityam asti? Is there anything for them to do? No, there's nothing for them to do. But doing still happens because it is their very nature. And so this is called the Utkrishta Yogi, whoever abides in the self. So this is the difference. Clear? So Manonasha, Manolaya. Manolaya, mind goes, it comes back exactly the same way. Manonasha, it goes, it comes back, not like before, because it's not binding anymore, and the jnani doesn't see it as a mind. They see it as consciousness. How did jnani get there? Ekachintana, by contemplating on that self. That's how jnani got there. And what happens to the jnani after that ekachintanam process? Utkrishta yogi. They become an exalted yogi. What is an exalted yogi? An exalted yogi is one who is ever fulfilled. There's nothing left for them to do. Why? Because swasthitim. They are ever abiding in the self. And what about their actions? Is that born of desire or discontent? No, it's born out of the fullness of their very expression. And that's the way they are in this world.